Vice President, Mr. Speaker, members of the Senate, of the House of Representatives, yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy, the United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan. The United States was at peace with that nation, and at the solicitation of Japan, was still in conversation with its government and its emperor, looking toward the maintenance of peace in the Pacific. Indeed, 1 hour after Japanese air squadrons had commenced bombing in the American island of Oahu, the Japanese ambassador to the United States and his colleague delivered to our Secretary of State a formal reply to a recent American message. Japan has therefore undertaken a surprise offensive extending throughout the Pacific area. The facts of yesterday and today speak for themselves. No matter how long it may take us to overcome this premeditated invasion, the American people in their righteous might will win through to absolute victory. With confidence in our armed forces, with the unbounding determination of our people, we will gain the inevitable triumph, so help us God.
I have come here to chew bubble gum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubble.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. You got a belly up to the bar, we've kept your seat, and it's great to see you back. Kelly is going to be your bartendress tonight. She pours with the best of them, and as you can see, the lava lamp is in fact lighted to my left, your right, if you happen to be watching. That's right, I said watching. On YouTube. If you go to the SHR Media YouTube channel, you can watch live right now. If you go to the SHR Media Facebook page, you can listen live and watch right now. If you go to shrmedia.com, you can go into the chat room and interact with all these glorious folks that are already in the chat room for the show, this being December 7th, the year of our Lord, 1941. We don't water our drinks just like we don't water our conversation, politics, religion, crime, culture, economics, race, sex, science, law. We talk about it all here at the Saloon. Nothing is sacred, the speech is free, but the booze, not so much. All we ask is that you flush the damn toilet, jiggle the handle, don't forget to tip your waitress. Tonight, we're going to have a very special guest. We are going to have Tammy Jackson of The Tammy Jackson Show, and she's going to chat with us about an article that she wrote last year, which was a multi-piece article. As a matter of fact, she is the owner and editor at barbwire.com. She has her own radio show on another network Okay, I'll mention it. She's on the 405 radio down in Southern California. The only question right now is there a 405? I'm not quite sure. Now, they shut down the 405 because of the Ventura fires. The amazing, I think there are, at this point, 80,000 plus acres burned. The last time I heard, the fires are the size of 4 Manhattan Islands in New York. By the way, when I say that, I hope that there's no one that's listening that doesn't happen to know that Manhattan is an island, or at least a province. Perhaps a peninsula? Something like that? Yeah. Anyway, it is the anniversary of December 7th, 1941, the year that we were bombed in Pearl Harbor by the Japanese, and there are fewer veterans year by year. President Trump had some in the Oval Office today. One of them actually sang a song. Not a great song, but God bless that dude for being alive. I have a semi-political, well, it's a very political question. What happens when we have no more Pearl Harbor survivors? And there's no one to actually speak about having experienced that event, the unprecedented attack on Pearl Harbor, which was the impetus to get us into World War II. When those people pass away and there are no more Pearl Harbor survivors, will that be used? This is the way my convoluted, fetid mind works. Will that be used by leftists to make sure that we just don't mention Pearl Harbor anymore, because that's just not very politically correct to say things about the Japanese or honor it in any way or honor any of the people who died during the attack on Pearl Harbor? These days, I have to wonder. But do not wonder about my ethics. Do not wonder about my mores. That's not an eel. And do not wonder about my being recognizant, I just made up a word, of the folks that are in chat, because already we got Whiskey Dale in chat. We have Tammy J herself in chat, and Mary Brockman is in chat, and one very diligent viewer. So I appreciate that. Anyway, Tammy Jackson's going to be coming on about, it's 10 after the, here in the left coast, it's 8:10. On the far right coast, it's 11:10, and in Bolivia, it's 23:73 and 119 minutes. That having been said, Tammy Jackson will be on in about 5 minutes or so. But before we do that, I haven't done this in a while, and I have some things to tell you that kind of fall under this umbrella.
It's time for happy stories and good times.
Here's a happy story. This comes from, of all places, Fox News. Taco Bell drive-thru employee raises money for critically injured local cop. I thought this was a great story, an actual happy story. One Taco Bell staffer in Missouri is asking more of customers than just their orders. Drive-thru operator Bill Grimm is collecting spare change from his Taco Bell customers for Officer Ryan O'Connor, who was shot in the head on December 5th while transporting a suspect, radio station KMOV reports. I figured an officer in my community who comes into my restaurant and eats all the time, I have to help him and give support, said Grimm of O'Connor, who has served the greater St. Louis area for nearly 20 years and remains hospitalized in critical condition. Soon after learning that O'Connor had been shot, Grimm began asking his drive-thru customers for pennies while he was preparing their orders at the Tex-Mex franchise's Arnold location. But patrons were much more generous, and Grimm soon had a piggy bank overflowing with donations. I got... Okay, been there, done this. I have it too. I got a lot of ashtray change. I got dollars, $5, and other bills given to me. It was just a remarkable thing to see people give in a time of need, Grimm said of his collection. Describing O'Connor as a very mellow, nice, and considerate person, Grimm feels he's simply doing his part to give back to the law enforcement official who's given so much of himself, sharing that O'Connor once helped him search for a felon who chased him in a car and threw a bottle at his mother's window. O'Connor is also accepting donations through a GoFundMe account. So you can do that yourself if you're interested. Find the GoFundMe account for Officer O'Connor, where almost $23,000 of a $50,000 fundraising goal has been raised for O'Connor, his wife, and his 4 young children. Then this also is a happy story and a good time. Here's the headline. I think you'll particularly enjoy this. I'm sorry, I just like the headline. Good woman with a gun shoots man allegedly assaulting officer. Yeah, okay, I'll say that's a good woman with a man. On Tuesday, an unidentified good woman with a gun saw a law enforcement officer being attacked and shot his alleged attacker with her handgun. The incident occurred outside of Chevron in Dawson County, Georgia. According to Fox 5, Sergeant Randy Harkness gave a homeless man a courtesy ride to the Chevron and was giving him some money when the man allegedly began assaulting the officer. A woman sitting in a car noticed the assault, grabbed her gun, and stepped in to help the officer. The Chevron owner said the woman shot off a round. The guy got off the police officer, and she shot another round, and he was running that way, I think. There were 3 shots. Law enforcement indicates the homeless man was hit by at least 1 slug. I'm sorry. Yet ran across the street to a McDonald's where he allegedly punched a 75-year-old woman in the face. Authorities believe that he was trying to steal the woman's car. The homeless man was tackled by customers, and he was held for police. After the man was arrested, the Chevron owner said, "It could have been worse, mate. Thank you for that lady who was carrying." And I say that's very true, too. Then there's this. And this was not covered. It was, oh my God, it was covered in such an entirely different way by the American media, maggots. Now you know why I call them that and have been calling them that for quite some time. Remember that impeachment thingy? And remember just a few days ago that it was featured, this article that I'm about to read was featured this way by the American media maggots. 58 Democrats vote to impeach Trump. The real story is this. House rejects Trump impeachment resolution after Democrat Representative Al Green forces vote. So the bottom line is this. The House of Representatives overwhelmingly rejected an attempt to impeach President Trump after a liberal Texas congressman forced a vote on his effort. Democrat Representative Al Green, who has repeatedly called for the president's removal, introduced 2 articles of impeachment against Trump on Wednesday, but lawmakers immediately voted to effectively kill his resolution. And perhaps you're wondering what the vote was. The vote was this: 364 voting to table it and 58 Democrats voting to move aside. But that's not the way that you heard it portrayed. Did you? No, of course you didn't. You didn't hear it that way at all. Maybe Brett Baer will be kind enough to tell us something about that. Or maybe he won't. But in any event, you see how the American media maggots have the ability to control the narrative on all of that. And you can see the clear difference between the way that they write their stories and the way that truth actually comes out. Now, folks, I said that we were going to talk to Tammy Jackson, and I'm sure you probably heard that that was her calling on the phone, and to make sure that I've got my levels correct and all of that. Do we have a festive, a Christmas Tammy Jackson on the phone?
You better believe you do, BZ.
Well, perhaps the most important question is then, are you festive and are you in the Christmas mood?
I am in the Christmas mood because I am a Christmas kind of gal, and I say Merry Christmas at every given opportunity.
You're damn straight. You're damn straight, mister. Boy, I want to tell you what. I have to. No, this is honest. And I'm curious if you have noticed any kind of a difference. I've said Merry Christmas more times this year to more people purposely than I ever have in the past. Now, some people would say BZ, you're probably doing that just to jack people up. And in response, I would say, to a degree, yeah, that's right. But I also say it because it's President Trump, and I feel that everyone is a little loose in that regard. And guess what, Tammy J? When I say Merry Christmas to people, probably 60 or 70% of the people, even more, say Merry Christmas right back to me. More than at any other time I've ever experienced. Certainly more than any other time I've experienced in the past 8 years. Have you noticed a difference about that?
I have noticed a difference, and it is funny that occasionally you find a retail outlet of some sort, or you're online with a shopping or something, and someone will say, Happy Holidays, and I laugh and I say, well, Merry Christmas to you.
And you go.
Usually they will say it back, but I think, okay, probably corporate is telling them, be very sensitive. And I think, oh my goodness, corporate, the reason you're making a profit this time of year is because of Christmas. Yeah. Let me tell you, it has to do with something that happened 2,000 years ago. You're not trying to say anything that's offensive to people. But, you know, my friend Jeff Dunnett's, Yid with Lid, he's a Jew on Long Island, and he loves it when people say Merry Christmas to him.
That's right, he does. But so
yes.
It is the happiest time of the year. And, you know, for the economy, the economy's getting better. Oh, but wait, no, it's not if you're a leftist, because, and I'm sure you've probably heard this, Tammy J. I'm sorry, I'm not getting to your article immediately, but, you know, I'll get there eventually.
Oh, that's okay. Go for it.
I swear to God I will. But isn't it funny how the leftists are saying, you know, because the economy is so good, and that's due to Trump, it's Trump's fault that the homeless population is exploding in Los Angeles. So does that mean then, Tammy J., that leftists want the economy not to be so good because if it's poor, then there will be fewer homeless throughout the fruited plain? What the fuck?
I don't even understand how those people think, BZ. I seriously do not. And I've also heard that as he's at 3+% growth, I've heard people say, well, it's only because of Obama. I think, what?
Yeah.
What? There is just absolutely no freaking way that Obama had to do with anything except for perhaps Solyndra and other utter failures like that dragged down our economy. Hello?
Be still my quaking heart. It's like the leftists can reach out to the dial and just tune it to take the exit to fuck me over town. Yeah, that's the exit we're going to take no matter what happens, despite the fact that President Trump has rolled back numerous regulations, and despite the fact that, do you know, I'm sure you probably already know this, but I have a couple of people who are in small businesses in, of all God-forsaken places, California. I still don't understand how they can manage to make it in a small business in California. But I use them as examples, and that's why I like to talk to them a lot. And I asked them, I said, now, what is the difference between, say, Barack Obama and President Trump? And so this one guy who owns a dry cleaning establishment in a little teeny town, I said, have you noticed any change in business? And I mean, it's really a teeny tiny town. It's like maybe 2,000 people, if that. And he said, yeah, my business has probably increased in the past maybe 9 months or so by about 50 to 60% because people are now bringing in stuff to dry clean. And I said, why is that? He said, I also hired an employee. One extra for him, that's huge to hire another employee.
Yeah, a new employee, that is a big deal for a small business.
It's massive. And I said, okay, now why did you feel, though, you felt unencumbered in some fashion, and you obviously felt encumbered before, so what's the difference? And he said, you know, I don't know if it's mental or not, but I also know that it has to do with my margin and my bottom line, and that's this. He says, for 8 years, myself and other small businesses all up and down California and some of my friends that are on the East Coast, we had no idea what Barack Obama and the Democrats were going to do. We had no real idea how Obamacare was going to affect us. We had no idea what kind of new regulations he was going to install. And of course, as you well know, in California, anywhere, dry cleaners use chemicals. And he was thinking, you know, they could drop a bill on us. tomorrow that outlaws some of the
Right.
chemicals that we have to use in dry cleaning in order to make sure that we get the people's clothes properly cleaned and addressed. He said, we were in a holding pattern. Myself and other businesses were in holding patterns. We didn't want to drop a lot of a lot of money on product because we didn't know where the economy was going to go. And he says the economy, just like you said, and I said, 3%. 2 quarters now,
Yep.
Tammy J, 3%. And Barack Hussein Obama couldn't manage to do that shite in 8 years. No 2 consecutive quarters. He didn't even get up to 3%. So he said, the past 8 years where we were just treading water, trying to figure out which way things were going to go because it changed. It changed all the time, day to day, year to year. We didn't know how our taxes were going to be affected. We didn't know how our bottom lines were going to be affected. Our margins are small, and we're a small store. But extend that further. That also goes out to big business. And I think business right now, especially after the tax proposals went through, businesses are sort of breathing a bit of a collective sigh, and they feel like they can loosen up some of that cash, spread it around, and start purchasing, perhaps inventory, getting some employees, etc. So to that, I say, Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas.
I know, it's wonderful. And BZ, with the tax bill, I am so excited about some of the elements of it. If they're going to do away with the mandate, I think that's going to still be in there. Getting rid of the inheritance tax. And this is something, I hope you talk about this a lot. I'm sure you do. But I am so sick to death of hearing all these lefties talk about the inheritance tax is for the wealthy. It's for the wealthy. That is a bunch of bull crap.
It is.
Let me tell you, I had an inheritance tax when my grandparents died. They had made something of themselves, but I wasn't going to become an heiress when I inherited that money. But it took enough away from me and then I had to pay, the taxes.
Yep.
It was ludicrous. And I thought, oh my goodness, they came from Norway. They worked their whole lives saving, working hard, working pretty much 6 days a week, saving, leading the straight, clean, tough life to accrue something and pass it on to their kids and grandkids. And I got something because my mother had been deceased before me. But, man, when I saw what the inheritance tax was going to be, it just flabbergasted me. And I thought, they did this the right way, and now the government's being confiscatory. They're being double taxed. That is outright theft. So let me tell everybody listening that if they do away with the inheritance tax, that is a huge deal because taxes have already been paid on those monies. It's for people poor and wealthy that have parents that have achieved anything in their lifetime that want to give it to their kids.
It's not just at minimum. At minimum, it's a double tax because your parents, my parents, everybody else, you, me, we've already paid taxes on that income. Federal taxes, state taxes, county taxes, city taxes, whatever venue you happen to be living. So that could be twice, 3 times, 4 times confiscatory. Then when they perish, then you pay a tax on the tax that you've paid on the tax. That falls into the BZ clearly what the fuck category. But wait, there's good news. You may or may not have heard that last Saturday, December the 2nd, the Obamacare mandate was repealed by the Senate. That was part of the package that was repealed by the Senate. Senate Republicans approved the repeal of Obamacare's individual mandate as part of their tax cut bill, a major step toward ending an unpopular part of the health care law. And how long did the GOP say that they were going to do this? A long time, almost 5 or 6 years, whenever the ACA first came in. And they ran on that. McCain, hello, John. And then those were the people that because they had theirs and you didn't have yours, they thought it would be entirely okay to, well, no, we can't go for the repeal right now, I don't think in good conscience I can vote no, or I can vote yes on that. There's just too many bad things in it. Okay, all right. And I have another question for the GOP, by the way. Hey, guys, gals, you had at least 5 years to come up and craft your own alternative to this. And what do you have? Not much. So you're scrambling at the last minute to try to fix this stuff. All you had to do was repeal it. Now you have a little bit of time. But at least, yes, now that portion is repealed. Now, Tammy, before we get into the gist of your article, now, there are a lot of people that are in chat right now, some people that may not know who you are. Luckily, there are a lot of people in here who do know who you are. Dan Butcher was in here. Oh, there's Dan right now. Dan said it snowed in Lubbock, Texas, and also near the Alamo. Is that not weird or what? That's crazy. When you think of the Alamo, Tammy, do you think of snow?
No, I don't. No, I don't. That's not what I think of.
No, I don't either. But anyway, like I was saying, for the people that may not know who you are, can you tell folks what you do, who you are, and where you read, you write articles, you have websites, and you have a radio show. So if you would please give us the entire Tammy Jackson Peaches in Regalia rundown of where you are on social media, where you can be read, and where you can be heard.
All righty. Well, I'm a writer, editor, and talk show host. For over 20 years, I was actually a managerial accountant, and I did customer relations worldwide. And the Obama-nomics actually hit our corporation really hard, and they started letting long-timers go. And when that happened, a good friend said, why don't you start a blog? And one thing led to another, and Peter Robinson of Ricochet put my article, the first serious article I've ever written or had ever written in 25 years, he put it on his professional feed, and within 48 hours I had offers to be an editor and to write, and then after that I was asked to host a talk show. So I am on Twitter. I am at Tammy J, Tamij, very simple avatar there. And I am the executive editor of barbwire.com. So I edit there, I write there. I also have articles that post at the Illinois Family Institute and elsewhere when I'm asked to write for other entities. And so that's what I'm doing now. And people can find me on Twitter. If you get on Twitter, you'll see where I am on Facebook, and you'll see the articles I'm posting and so forth, and lots of good stuff up at Barbwire. There's a lot of tremendous people that write there that you see nationwide in the news, and I'm just honored to edit for them and to write there when I can.
Wow, you know, I happen to know one of those persons who writes for Barbed Wire.
Which one is that? You? I put your stuff up on Barbed Wire. Oh, and I forgot to mention, my show is Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific on the 405media.com.
There we go. That's what I wanted you to say. Now, on your radio show, Tammy, is there anything in particular, any kind of emphasis that you place on things? I know you have a new person that you interview almost every damn show. I don't think you ever do a show by yourself. You've always got a guest on your show. Who do you
a lot.
Who do you kind of angle to get? What's sort of the focus of your show?
Well, when people ask, if they look at my bio on there, I tell them, you know, I'm ensconced in the blue state of Oregon. I was born and raised here, so I'm embedded in the heart of darkness that's kind of the Portland metro area. Yeah. It's huge. There's wackadoodles here like crazy. There's communists here. You name it, they're all here.
Here too.
But yes, my zoo. But I tell them, you know, I'm a First Amendment gal, I'm a Second Amendment gal, I talk about religious liberty, freedom of speech, I'm a shooter, I'm a trained shooter. I was trained by the NRA and then trained by a Navy SEAL, so I'm pretty good. I tell people when I shoot well, it's thanks to the Navy SEAL. If I muck it up, it's all my fault. And so I'm a big concealed carry holder gal, really big on that. I interview authors. I interview all kinds of people. And what's interesting is I'm on the Simon & Schuster list of talk show hosts to contact. So I have stacks and stacks of books because I actually read the books prior to having the authors on, typically. Lately I had two on. They wanted on in a hurry, and I wasn't able to read their books yet because I haven't received them yet. But I do that. I've had musicians on. And so obviously I'm very conservative. I'm a woman of faith. I'm outspoken, as people can tell. And I just figure, all of us that can need to do a little something.
Two things before we go, because we're going to have to hit the break. And when we come back after the break, Tammy J is going to tell us about the article that she wrote about 47 bodies associated with Hillary Clinton. What the hell does that mean? But two things, like I said. Number one, I don't know. I mostly think of you as a shrinking violet. I just hope that someday you'll come out of your shell and tell us what it is that you're really thinking and what you really want to say and what you really want to write. Then this final comment. You're the only person that I've ever seen in a photograph who appears to be holding a Colt 1911 series in condition 1 on the steps of the Oregon Capitol. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes, I've spoken 3 times on the Oregon State Capitol.
I love it.
To thousands of people with a gun raised high in the air at one point and in condition 1, just as you said, for some Second Amendment and other rallies. And I also spoke at a rally on the steps of the courthouse in downtown Portland with all the anarchists all around. And so that I've done some interesting things.
You have. I love that. Folks, we're going to go to a break. Don't go away. We're going to be right back. We're talking to Tammy Jackson of Tammy Jackson Radio fame. Folks, come right back. We're having a blazing time right here on BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. Don't go away.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show, also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Times are dark. The people are misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation looking for direction needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, Pundit Press Radio, and YouTube through the SHR Media page for a different kind of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because the truth is not always pleasant.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians.
You got a business. You didn't build that.
A team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean.
Dude, I'm not saying calf for the stupid promo.
Sackhead Clint.
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
Also starring Sacco as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, 'cause I'm drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on shrmedia.com.
The bloviating Zeppelin. He's big-footed enough radio shows to last a lifetime, courtesy of Sean, Clint, Ken, and Jersey Joe. Now it's time for him to waddle on his own 2 feet via the glorious SHR Media. Gird thy loins for the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. Coming soon to ossicles near you. Excelsior.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome tonight, Thursday, December 7th, 1941. Welcome tonight to the Berserk Bobcat Saloon Radio Show, where we have a very special guest on tonight, and that is Tammy Jackson of Tammy Jackson fame. She's got her own radio show. She's got her own news. She's kind of like a news magnet, M-A-G-N-A-T-E, not M-A-G-N-E-T. And the reason that I've asked her here tonight is because she wrote a series of articles and they appeared in barbwire.com, where she's the editor. And the title of part 1, there were a couple of parts to this. The title of part 1 is 47 Bodies Left in the Wake of Hillary Clinton. Now, somebody told me, you need to have Tammy on and you need to read that article. And I have to admit, Tammy, up to that point, I hadn't read it. So I started reading that and I thought, oh, wow, okay, I really need to have Tammy tell us about this. So 47 bodies aligned to Hillary Clinton? You can't be serious, Tammy J.
I know, and what's interesting is I started doing the research. My dad sent me, you know how you get these emails that talk about this stuff, and he sent me an email and he said, Tam, I want you to look at this. And my dad is a very well-reasoned man. He was, in his career, he was a scientist, a research scientist. He's from the Midwest, very close to the Show Me State, married a gal from the Show Me State. So Dad doesn't fall for anything, but he said, take a look at this. And so what he sent me was this email that talked about the 47 bodies in the wake of Hillary Clinton. So what it has was just a list of 47 names. And I looked at it and looked at it and looked at it, and I thought, well, 47 bodies. Okay, are these people that just happened to be at a rally she was at, or where were they, and how closely did she associate with them, and what type of death did they have? So I started doing my research, and BZ, I was amazed. Now, some of them you'll read, and it says the coroner listed they died of natural causes. But then you get into it, like the first guy who is listed is James McDougal. Now, he died in prison of natural causes, but the interesting thing was he had cardiac arrest, and instead of using the equipment that they had on site, they transported him to the least capable hospital that was some distance away, that's known for shoddy care. The joke is they let interns practice on deadbeats, and he died. So, I mean, that even was suspect. But then you get to some things. By the time I got even to the second name on the list, and let me also tell you, BZ, doing, for everybody listening, doing investigative reporting on things that happened maybe even in the 70s, 80s, and 90s is not as easy as you think. Nowadays, you Google what you want to Google. You find stuff. You can find articles. You can find radio shows. You can find TV shows, everything you want about a person's death. But in those days, unless you're in the town and you have access to the microfiche of the newspapers, it's very hard to find. Plus, interestingly enough, and this piqued my interest even more, BZ, was that many of these people, their obits and other things from the records of the newspapers had been scrubbed. So maybe that day was missing, or everybody else's obit was there and a name for the person in question, but everything else had been scrubbed. And I thought, holy crap, this is making me more curious all the time. Thankfully, I did enough research, and I found there were people here and there that actually took photographs of obituaries of these people and different articles about how they died, and wrote blogs and put the photographs in there. So the photographs have the newspaper, the date, everything. So I got some good substantiation. And I try to be very clear when I'm writing this, that I don't say, okay, definitely Hill and Bill ordered these hits. I don't say that. But what I do say is that anybody with a modicum of sense, if you listen to how each of these people died, how closely and intimately they were connected with the Clintons and what they knew about the Clintons, then you have to say to yourself, how many people do each of us know intimately, like very close associates, in our firms, working on our campaigns, working in our offices, working with us on different cases, in close proximity? These were intimate acquaintances and friends that knew a lot about the Clintons and about dirty dealing, etc. How many people do we know that know us this well that die in many, many times very violent deaths that are not normal deaths?
I have to ask.
For instance.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Well, okay, let me give a for instance, and
Okay.
this will whet people's appetite.
Right.
And I broke it up into 10 articles, and by the way, the first 10 that I published originally, I republished everything on barbed wire because my buddy Jeff Dunnis that I mentioned, he republished with, parts of it on his Yid with Lid, and suddenly he was getting 50,000 people reading it. And he said, you got to republish that because people still don't know this stuff. So I republished it, and I had thousands and thousands of people viewing it. But the first time I published it, the very first set of 10 had 500,000 views. 500,000. And that was only the first installment. So this is how this stuff went viral, and I was on radio stations everywhere. But, okay, so there was a White House intern who was murdered in 1997 at a Starbucks coffee shop in Georgetown. Now, Georgetown is kind of an uppity neighborhood of Washington, D.C., and the murder happened just before she was going to go public with a story of sexual harassment by Clinton in the White House. Wow, doesn't that sound familiar, BZ? So she was working in the Starbucks coffee shop in Georgetown, very nice upscale neighborhood. And I write, the gunman entered Starbucks while the crew was cleaning up after closing. Mahoney's two associates, Aaron Goodrich, 18, and Emery Evans, 25, were taken to a separate room and shot. Mary herself had 5 bullets from at least 2 different guns, most likely with silencers. 10 shots were fired total, none of them heard by neighbors in the densely populated Georgetown section. Mahoney was shot in the chest, her face, and the back of her head. The $4,000 in the store register was still there, and the police categorized the triple murder as a robbery, even though they acknowledged that they were execution-style killings. Now, anybody, and you know this, BC, anybody that's listening that's a shooter, that's had any kind of training or been in law enforcement, dealt with this sort of thing. 2 shots to the chest, 1 to the head, is called a failure drill. That is a professional hit, maybe by a special operator, maybe by a made man, but that is not a coincidence. That is not a robbery. That's a professional hit.
Well, on the range, we called that a triple tap. That's a triple tap. 2 to the body, 1 to the head.
Yes, and so when I got all the information on it, it's all completely substantiated. This was reported on at the Western Journalism Center, very credible publication. I found other substantiating articles. So I did everything I could to substantiate what I was hearing. Some of the facts on the original list were not right. I found cemeteries. I found headstones in cemeteries that they had pictures of them so I could find exact dates. I found sheriff reports, and let me tell you, I received emails from sheriffs in Texas and Arkansas and Missouri who contacted me, asked me to stay in touch with them every week to make sure they knew I was okay and to watch my back. So these people and the people that contacted me, those law enforcement people, knew the Clintons. They knew firsthand of what was going on, and they were concerned for my safety. I told them I'm kind of like Leanne Toohey, I guess, in The Blind Side, that I have friends in high places, I pray, and I pack heat.
Folks, if you haven't read this series of articles, you need to. As Tammy said, it's an installment of 10. And each article has, each installment has a number of pages within it. So if you want to start at the start, I'm going to give you the URL for this. You go to barbwire.com, BARBWIRE.com, and from there, or you can get on your favorite search engine and Google, I'm trying not to mention that stupid damn name. Get on your favorite search engine and enter Tammy Jackson, T-A-M-I, Jackson, 47 bodies, Hillary Clinton. That's all you need, and you'll go right to those series of articles. So, 2 ways. Either get on your favorite search engine. You can find it there. Or go to barbwire.com, which is also a great place to go if you're interested in politics. Her writing, an occasional article from yours truly as well, barbwire.com. But it's a lengthy series of great detail. Question for you.
Yes.
Do you have any thoughts about Seth Rich?
Well, anybody now that is connected to the Clintons in any way that has disappeared or died, and it doesn't seem to add up, I'm suspicious. I would not put a lot past the Clintons. Remember, even during the Trump campaign, everybody was saying that all those Trump people at these campaigns are violent, and they're kind of low-life and violent. And then it came out that, no, there were operatives that the DNC and the Clintons hired to stir up trouble and to cause violence at these campaign events.
Bingo.
And so what you have to understand, what I know of Hillary Clinton, and I had Dinesh D'Souza on my show, and when we talked off air, he said the same thing. He said he's not going to accuse them of everything in the light of day, but he never puts anything past the Clintons, and privately thinks that they would be capable of almost anything. As I said before, and I end each of these articles, telling people that although I don't say, yeah, they ordered this hit, that you have to suspend logic to believe that they knew these many people that knew so much about the details of their lives and their misdoings. For these people to all die, these suspicious deaths, many of them violent. One of the men that was going to come clean, that had some information on the Clintons and their dealings in Arkansas, was stopped in the middle of an intersection outside of Little Rock and executed point blank through his car window. And he was it's in the series, but there's a lot of deaths that are like that there's no reason for it, but they're execution style murders, and there's others that they were ruled natural causes, but if you look at them, you think there's something wrong. That doesn't sound very natural to me.
Yeah, there is as natural as methamphetamine. That grows in nature.
Yeah. So I would say, we know with the Clinton Foundation how corrupt that was. They said they were helping with the DR, and they did not. And the people from the DR even don't believe them one little bit.
Yep.
And I think, okay, if the people that are in the Dominican Republic, and most of them are at such an impoverished level, they're not educated supposedly like Americans, although I don't think young Americans are very educated unless they go to private schools or are homeschooled, quite frankly.
Bingo.
But you think, okay, they understand how corrupt the Clintons were. Hello, we have no reason to be ignorant of what Bill and Hill Clinton are capable of, and I think they're capable of a lot of wrongdoing. I really do.
I'd like to give this as an example. So if people are wondering what the tenor of this article is like and how you've crafted it, and it's obvious. Once you start reading this, folks, you'll find that it's not just a bunch of specious bullshit that Tammy decided that she was going to concoct out of thin air. For every individual that's listed, there are very specific attributions which are listed and linked, and then she goes into great detail from articles that were already published in the public venue, and all she did was reference them, put them together, and then add her commentary. So it's not like she's coming up with this crap out of thin air. That's not how she assembled the series of articles. For example, here's Vince Foster. He's the third individual. And your lead-in to Vince was former White House counselor and colleague of Hillary Clinton at Little Rock's Rose Law Firm. Died of a gunshot wound to the head, ruled a suicide. He was about to testify against Hillary related to the records she refused to turn over to Congress. Was reported to have been having an affair with Hillary. Okay, that's your lead-in to that. And then immediately, boom, there's an attribution with an author and a link right there. So it's obvious you're not coming out with this and spewing garbage that hasn't been documented before. You documented the crap out of this, each and every individual. That's the fashion in which you wrote the article. It's not as though you pulled it out of a coffee cup somewhere. You have good factual attributions to each and every individual that you've linked here. The other
yes,
thing,
and it took a lot of time. I know that people were saying, "Are you going to get these up faster and faster?" And I literally would take weeks investigating, and I wrap them up with things. I say things, for instance, in part 2, I end the 10 installments there, and I write, each of these deaths seems to have had a cloud of mystery surrounding the event.
Yep.
In some cases, the victims were shot execution style with firearms fitted with suppressors. The public should be asking, how common is it that a couple, such as Bill and Hillary, happen to know 47 people who died violent and mystery-shrouded deaths? And so as I give, as you said, I have lead-ins and a little bit of commentary, and then I wanted to cite as many publications as I could. And if there's multiple citations, I tried to get the ones, it's like when you write an article, to satisfy people, you don't just want to cite, for instance, Fox News or something that people would say are just all a bunch of crazy conservatives or something, which I don't believe Fox News is that much anymore.
No.
Parts of it are, but you try to cite as much a balance of sources as possible, and especially, if you can cite the Gray Lady or something, boom, that's awesome, because the liberals will have a hard time refuting that, or even HuffPo. So I tried to cite the most largely believable or credible sources possible. So I didn't go to some wackadoodle's blog, even though, there are some obscure people that probably have blogs that tie things together really, really well. But I tried to get references that people would immediately recognize as a top-tier site. And
you tried to keep it as mainstream as possible.
I did. But it was amazing as I read this stuff and researched it, and the people I heard from, and I actually heard from some people that said they had more information they could give me, but they were kind of afraid to even give it up, people that were in Arkansas and so forth. And they gave me tidbits that were pretty darn amazing, some of which gave me tips to do further research. So the feedback on it was very interesting, BZ.
Did you find something of a linkage in terms of when these investigations were conducted? Did you not find that one of the linking threads throughout some of these was the fact that the investigation itself appeared to have some very serious flaws in and of themselves?
Yes, and there were flaws, and so you'd look at the police department and think, why did the police department rule this a suicide, or why did the coroner say it was natural causes? These weren't natural causes, and oftentimes, if it was a halfway decent investigation and it was midway through it, that's when the death occurred, and then boom, everything stopped. So it sometimes it's, for instance, this reminds me of the time I was on a jury, and most of us get out of jury duty most of our lives, but about 10 years ago, I couldn't get out of jury duty. So I went, and what's interesting is I was one of 2 women on the jury, and it was for, it was a federal crime. It was a big deal. We were sequestered. And by midday through, I was selected jury foreman, and if you can believe that. By the end of the day, we all found him guilty. There were 2 bleeding heart people, and I said, why are you saying he's not guilty? And they said, well, somebody else might have put all the drugs and paraphernalia in the trunk of his car, and this might have happened, this might have happened, this might have happened. And I said, well, we need to play back what the judge told us, because I took notes. And the judge told us that you have to be the average person and not suspend all disbelief to find this person innocent. So if you're using normal logic, etc., would you find this person guilty? So very interesting stuff that when you read about these deaths surrounding the Clinton, you would have to suspend all common logic, all common sense, to say that there's no ties to the Clinton with these. It's just too overwhelming.
You mentioned that people were hesitant to talk. One of the biggest questions I had after finally getting through. I thought, okay, I even wrote this down. You'd be proud. You would have been proud of me, Tammy. I wrote this down to make sure that I actually asked you this question tonight. And we got about 3 minutes to go, 2.5 minutes or so before the top of the hour. Folks, if you don't know, by the way, we are listening to Tammy Jackson, and she's telling us about the trail of bodies left in the wake of the Clintons, Hillary and William et al., 47-plus bodies counting. So the question I have for you is this. It appears, let me put it this way, it appears that the Clintons are losing some power, that the air is escaping from their blimp, so to speak. And now people are saying, hey, Hillary Clinton has to come back for 2020. And I think that's a load of crap. I don't think that she's got the temerity, or I don't think she can do it in no other way than just her health. But that having been said, the Clintons appear to be losing power. Once they become have had their fangs removed, if you will, do you think that we'll actually have people come out and begin to spill the actual truth about what has been involved with the Clintons and how they've actually operated all these years? Or will that go to their graves and everyone else?
It may start to come out. It's interesting, like with each of these creeps that have been accused and quite a bit of it substantiated with Franken and Weinstein and others. Sometimes as it starts to come out and it's substantiated, then more people come out. And I think it should all be substantiated, by the way. I'm not one of these women that think any woman that cries wolf, although it's serious stuff, but it's real easy to ruin a reputation, and you need to have substantiation with these accusations. I really believe that. But with the Clintons, I think if their sphere of power begins to decrease, that people will be emboldened to say more. And I believe that there is a whole lot more that could come out about them. You think they've been involved in this stuff since college days, since they joined together. And I tell people, I pretty much think that Hillary is the really lethal one, and Bubba is the schmooze factor. So they have been able to skate for a long, long time, doing all manner of horrible things. Okay, I believe there's a God, so I think in the end they're going to get theirs. But prior to that, man, I would love for some justice here and now on Earth, because if ever two people deserve justice, it's Bill and Hillary.
Wow, that's the Clinton Foundation, William Jefferson Clinton, and Hillary Rodham Clinton, in my estimation, they are their own RICO. You could build, in my estimation, you could build one of the finest RICO cases against them that I could ever feature. And yet, our DOJ, our FBI, compromised as they are,
yes.
I actually do not see that happening. It's the top of the hour. We're going to have to take a break. I don't know whether you have to go or not. If you are interested, you can certainly stay over the break. And if you've got to go, then you got to go. I certainly understand that.
Well, I just probably have to go, but it's been so
that's
fun.
Fine.
I hope you'll have me on again.
I will. I would absolutely love to, because next time you come on, if you haven't written either more articles or the moon has struck the earth or something of that nature, I'd love to have you on and just talk just general politics, if nothing else.
Oh, yeah.
Boy, am I a political animal. Folks, you have been listening.
I know you are.
Oh, God, yes. And you are the love of my life. Folks, you are talking. We have been speaking to Tammy Jackson. You can go to her news site, barbwire.com, and you can listen to her show, The Tammy Jackson Show. every Tuesday night on the 405 Media, if the 405 actually is around following these particular fires. Tammy Jackson, thank you ever so kindly for your time here tonight. You've been a sterling individual.
Thanks for having me on, BZ. You know I love you, and I'll be on anytime you ask.
You're very kind. Thank you. Folks, we're going to take a break, and then we're going to be right back with more buttery political goodness. Don't go away.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show, also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Beware, the Jersey Takeover is here. Every Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can catch River Common Sense Show hosted by Jersey Joe, right here on shrmedia.com. Only Jersey can deliver hell like no one else. So consider this your fair warning.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice. Reverend Ralph J. Chittum Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right. The right guy on SHR Media.
Power brokers use corrupt politicians, deceptive Islam, and lies from establishment media to turn the once shining city on a hill into the city of the blind. What do the elites fear? One man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me at SHR Media, High Plains Talk Radio, Spreaker, iTunes, and YouTube for a different kind of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because truth is not always pleasant.
Hello, I'm Tim Hart. I'm the guy BZ hires due to his shameless contract with the SHR Media Network to voice his promos. He'd like me to tell you that the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be found on SHR Media Network, Spreaker, and YouTube every Tuesday and Thursday night at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific, featuring right thinking from a left brain and doing the job the American media maggots won't. You'll find that the speech is free, but the drinks are not. There, in the saloon, just when safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, BZ is sending his personal drones of freedom into the wheelhouses and ossicles of lovers of sovereignty and liberty nationally and globally. Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, BZ swears that no rights were harmed in the making of this promo.
This is Jersey Joe, host of the Reverb Common Sense, and you're listening to SHRmedia.com.
Headbanging music with Jersey Joe. The Reaver of Common Sense can customarily be found just before me, Monday through Friday. Jersey Joe, the Reaver of Common Sense. If there's common sense around, Jersey Joe will reave the shite out of it. However, that said, Comcast has been kind of messing with poor Jersey Joe, and he hasn't had a show for the entire week. And he might have one tomorrow, I'm not sure, but it's internet issues and problems again, unfortunately, with Jersey Joe. That said, I started off the show with happy stories and good times. One of them that I wanted to read about and let everybody here know is this from the Star Tribune, and this is from Madison, Wisconsin. The headline is this, and this couldn't have come at a better time. Things are actually relaxing and loosening up just a little bit. But the headline is this, and it gives me hope for some other states, if some of these other states will pick it up, and that's this. Governor Scott Walker in Wisconsin is moving ahead with a plan to drug test food stamp users. And I can hear the collective intake of breath from leftists all across the fruited plain thinking, oh my God, you mean there must be some kind of a quid pro quo? We want our free shit and we want it now. Totally unencumbered with anything else because we deserve it. We've paid the tax. Oh, wait, no. We haven't paid the taxes. You're paying the taxes. I'm paying the taxes. And maybe it's time we got, oh gosh, what a unique concept, a little bit of accountability out of that. So the article from the Strib goes like this. Governor Scott Walker moved ahead Monday with his plans to make Wisconsin the very first state to drug test able-bodied adults applying for food stamps, a move blocked by the federal government or found to be unconstitutional when other states have tried. Now, isn't that interesting? I'll have to have the underground professor on and ask him why it is that it would be unconstitutional to ask for some kind of accountability for people to whom we give our largesse, enabling them literally their free cheese. And that's what I call free stuff anyway, whether it's food related or not. I call it free cheese. Florida had a drug test requirement for food stamp recipients that a federal appeals court blocked in 2014, finding that it violated constitutional protections against unreasonable searches. Walker filed a federal lawsuit in 2015 seeking approval to test food stamp applicants, but it was rejected because then President Barack Hussein Obama's administration had not yet formally rejected the state's request to do the testing. Walker asked then President-elect Donald Trump, his administration, in December of 2016 to make clear that drug screening is permissible, but it has not taken action, and now Walker is moving ahead anyway. Do these two words seem to be potentially applicable right now? Test case? This may be another constitutional test case. However, as I was saying last night on the Sackheads radio show, one of the biggest things that up to this point, 1 year, President Trump managed to do is to install Neil Gorsuch on the Supreme Court, because eventually these days, because of the massive amount of contestation that's occurring on almost every level, if it involves a conservative and certainly Donald Trump, a lot of this crap is going to go right up to the Supreme Court. Now, of course, it'll go up all through our appellate courts. And recently, as you well realize, this past weekend, earlier this week, Trump's travel ban, the Washington courts, Oregon courts, and Hawaii courts have overturned that, saying that they found it unconstitutional, that we can have a say as to who comes into our country. It went up to SCOTUS. There are going to be more hearings, but at least temporarily, SCOTUS said, no, we're going to let that stay for right now. And Ninth Circuit, again, you're proven to be the abject leftist cowards that you truly are. And as we discussed last night on Sackheads Radio, I don't think they much particularly give a damn. But that's a very interesting case, and I think I suspect that's going to go up into we're going to see that again, so to speak. Now, there was another case that went to court, and it came back today. You didn't hear about this much in the media, but I wanted to make sure that I mentioned this today. It's no surprise, and people who read me on my blog, bloviatingzeppelin.net, or they happen to listen to the radio show here, either live or in podcast, is I was a law enforcement officer for 41 years. I started in the 1970s. My first automobile was a 1974 Dodge Monaco. One of the best cars I actually drove. It was a toot to be able to haul around in that thing. And it actually had the massive 440 Magnum in it. Okay, let me point it to you this way. If you ever saw the Blues Brothers, that old beat-up piece of crap, black and white, that they had was a Dodge Monaco, a 1974 Dodge Monaco with the big 440 Hemi in it. They weren't as powerful as people think, but they were pretty scooty for their time. I worked for the FBI. I worked for the U.S. Marshal, so I worked on the federal venue. I worked for a coastal California Sheriff's Department, and then I retired after 35 years with an inland Sheriff's Department of 2,000 plus deputies. I made the rank of sergeant, and I created our own evac team. One of the documents that I wrote with regard to pursuits went up to the Supreme Court, as a matter of fact, and my pursuit policy was not found lacking or wanting at the time in Lewis v. Sacramento. I was our evac supervisor. I was our range master. I worked in patrol. I worked a whole bunch of other places. I worked in detectives. It was a long, wide, and varied career. I support law enforcement when I possibly can. When law enforcement is wrong, unfortunately these days it seems to be getting a lot of stuff wrong, particularly with regard to the political aspect of it. When law enforcement is wrong, I'll be the first to call them on it, because I know what law enforcement looks like when it's done right. I was there during the heyday of my department when it was the strongest I suspect that it ever will be, and the job got done. And the job gets done by people, men and women, who are willing to do the job lawfully, legally, and who are assertive but not aggressive. And there's a big difference between that, I'd like to point out. I used to tell my driving instructors when I was in charge of evac, and I would tell my students this as well. I want you as a driver of law enforcement in an emergency response vehicle, and it's true as a cop, I want you to be assertive but not aggressive. And there's a difference. I used to craft it in this fashion. I want you to be a fighter pilot. I want you to have skills that are honed. Yes, skills behind a wheel and skills that you've acquired all the tools necessary in the brain and also on your Sam Brown, on your belt. Because the finest tool that any officer has is, in fact, his or her own brain and the ability to go into a problematic situation, look at the situation, come up with some kind of a solution, make sure that it's palatable, and mostly make sure that it falls within the law and that you don't bluff. Bluffing, that's very, very bad. Now you know a little bit about me in my background. And I have to say that this particular case that came out today, from what I can read, from what I know of it, this was an abomination. And what occurred today, I have to support 100%. And that's this. The article is from NPR, of all places. Tammy J said that, you know what, I cite a lot of mainstream articles, and I do it here. I do it here on the radio, and I do it on the blog. This is an article from NPR.org. The headline is, Former South Carolina officer who killed Walter Scott sentenced to 20 years in prison. And from the fact pattern of which I am aware and I have read, I have to say that that is a good decision. I saw the video. From the information that I have, Walter Scott was shot and killed by that officer. Period. End of statement. When you are that abject, when you don't have the law behind you, or it appears that you take the law into your own hand, or who knows what that particular officer was thinking on that day, you're going to pay a penalty. You're going to pay a price. And you should pay a penalty. Michael Slager, the white former police officer who was filmed killing an unarmed black man in North Charleston, South Carolina, has been sentenced to 20 years in prison. In sentencing Slager, who pleaded guilty earlier this year to a federal civil rights violation, the judge ruled Thursday that he committed second-degree murder and obstruction of justice. I concur completely. When law enforcement gets it wrong, they need to be called. Law enforcement doesn't get it wrong. Let's put it this way. Law enforcement gets it wrong much less than, say, doctors. Everyone holds doctors, nurses, the medical community up on a pedestal, and they are great, great individuals. Their body count, however, because of misconduct in the practice of medicine, is infinitely higher than law enforcement ever will be. To the tune of 5 figures every year. Oddly enough, we don't seem to hear much about that. Slager, 36, acted out of malice and forethought, shooting dead an unarmed and fleeing Walter Scott. U.S. District Judge David Norton told the court Thursday after several days of testimony, according to the Charleston Post and Courier. Slager's actions were disproportional to Scott's misconduct. Precisely. In a wrought courtroom scene, Scott's mother, Judy, told Slager that she forgives him for her son's killing. As South Carolina Public Radio's Victoria Hanson reports, Slager turned to her and silently mouthed, "I'm sorry." "I know," she replied. And that's as it should be. This individual is going to spend 20 years in prison. That said, I always weigh in on matters involving law enforcement. They are a particularly oppressed group, in my opinion, these days. We're having a terrible time. Law enforcement is having a terrible time in terms of recruiting. I'm sure people on the left are going, huzzah, yay, that's the way it should be. We should have fewer and fewer police officers. Hell, there are people that were saying that, hey, we need to defund the Chicago Police Department. There was, in fact, a movement to attempt to defund the Chicago Police Department. Well, if you think 700 murders on the streets of Chicago are cool, then just remove the police element and equation and watch that skyrocket. So if you think 700 dead black young males is cool and little children, oh, wait, you're going to love the way it skyrockets if Chicago PD were to be defunded. And yes, that's how ridiculously stupid leftists can be. So Officer Slager, who actually doesn't deserve to be called officer anymore because he's going to be called inmate, he got what he deserved. But I need to point that out because when officers conduct themselves in this fashion, they become a stain, and a stain that needs to be removed. In this case, that stain was appropriately removed. And what I mean by stain is they stain with their acts or lack of action all the other law enforcement officers, men and women, that do a damn good job every day in this nation, every shift, every hour, every minute of the day. Well, enough with that. Now we're going to come to, and I'm in the process of writing a post that I'll probably have next Tuesday. Oh, stop. We're talking to Tammy Jackson. And we were talking to Tammy Jackson. Tammy Jackson frequently has authors on her show, and she had a particular author named Matthew Betley on his show. I think she's had him on twice now. And Matthew Betley has written 2 books, 2 great books. If you haven't read them, I highly recommend them. They were published in hardback. And his books, the first one was called Overwatch, and the second is Oath of Honor. I'm going to be speaking to Matthew Betley next Tuesday, sort of early on in the show. He writes about the CIA, intelligence, terrorism, the military vein. He's an excellent, excellent author, and I'm going to have him on next Tuesday. Next week is sort of like author week. On Thursday, I'm going to have author Terrence McCauley back on. He's written numerous books, and his newest is A Conspiracy of Ravens. He writes in that fashion, too, sort of CIA, intelligence, terrorism, in that fashion. Kind of along the lines of, say, Brad Thor, Vince Flynn, that sort of thing. So if you like to read authors, and we're going to go into their books in detail, I highly recommend author Matthew Betley. He's published in hardback. We're going to talk to him on Tuesday. And author Terrence McCauley, we're going to be speaking to him on Thursday. That said, also Tuesday or Thursday, not sure yet, depends on if I get this particular post done. It is my opinion that we are currently in the midst of a soft coup in the United States of America against the current administration in the Oval Office. And perhaps you're thinking to yourself, BZ, you have in fact gone off the end. Just as Tammy J has done in terms of documentation of the 47 bodies strewn around here, hither and thither from Hillary Clinton and from Bill Clinton, I've done a lot of research and have gotten a lot of material with regard to the various investigations that are going on currently in D.C. And I said on November 8th, and I'm going to talk about another article that relates to this next, but where I'm leading is this. The election occurred November 8th, and I will say this until the day that I cack. Democrats, leftists, and the American media maggots have not even stepped foot into the next day, November 9th. November 9th to them doesn't even really exist. That day, November 9th, was the day that Hillary Clinton and all the other people decided that they were going to come up with their reasons that she lost. Every reason that you could possibly imagine. She lost because she was a terrible, terrible candidate. She lost because she had the personality of an eastern diamondback rattlesnake. On a good day. She lost despite the fact that she had the American media maggots in her pocket and all the other leftists and massive troves of money behind her. Despite that, Donald Trump won. And he's here to stay. From that day, and I also said this, the Democrats, leftists, and American media maggots are going to rue the day that they decided that they were going to go all in on Trump and Russia. And I said then that these investigations are going to boomerang back on them. And is through these investigations that we're going to discover that the real people who are responsible for the raping of D.C. and the United States and the American taxpayers, me and you, and the corruption that's going to be exposed is, in fact, on the Democrat side. Collusion between the leftists and Democrats and the American media maggots. You want collusion? There's the collusion. Here's an article that just came out today. This is from FoxNews.com. Top DOJ official demoted amidst probe of contacts with Trump dossier and Trump dossier firm. You can't write this stuff. You can't make it up. So let's see if I can get this to play this time. It's not going to play for me. Okay, that's right. Exclusive. A senior Justice Department official was demoted this week amid an ongoing investigation into his contacts with the opposition research firm responsible for the anti-Trump dossier. Now, at this point, everybody's going over their heads and saying, dossier, dossier, dossier. What a piece of crap. This doesn't mean a thing. People toss these words out. And by the way, I've got to do more important things like watch The Voice or balance my checkbook or clean my fish tank, as I am wont to say. The opposition research firm responsible for the anti-Trump dossier, the department confirmed to Fox News. Until Wednesday morning, Bruce G. Orr, OHR, held two titles at DOJ, Associate Deputy Attorney General, a post that placed him four doors down from his boss, Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, and Director of the Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Force, a program described by the department as the centerpiece of the Attorney General's drug strategy. For a moment, I got about 5 more minutes before the bottom of the hour break, I'm going to summarize this up right now, and then especially with this, the rest of this article, and the article that I'm going to be crafting for next week, it's going to go back to this, and you may have heard this, and I truly believe that this is correct. The Trump-Russian dossier, which is specious bullshit, the DNC paid for it. It's linked to the Department of Justice. It's linked to an investigation or an investigator across the pond in the UK. It's full of crap that was never proven, and I believe truly that document, the Russian dossier, was used falsely, wrongly, unlawfully to go to a FISA court and get a FISA warrant for an individual known as Carter Page. And from the beginning of that investigation, everything opened up like a flower, petals unearthing. And they used a specious bullshit document to acquire a warrant to tap him and other individuals, up to and including Michael Flynn and more. And so this entire investigation with regard to Mueller, etc., all of it is based upon fruit of the poisonous tree. And the fruit of the poisonous tree doctrine says this: if your fundamental point for acquiring a warrant or making a decision and or an arrest is based upon crap, or that you didn't acquire it lawfully, everything else that you get from that point out is tainted and must be thrown away. And I think that we're finding, and it's a little chip each and every time, every day, every week, we're finding more chips being knocked out of this artificial statue of collusion between Trump and Russia, because it's leading people where they don't want to go, and it's leading back to the Democrats. And they're going to, I fervently believe that bullshit document was used to predicate the original series of FISA warrants upon which they built every case and every direction now in which it leads. And it's upon this, I believe, that we're going to discover that there are many elements in the federal government, in many of the alphabet agencies, who don't want and cannot have this information. They cannot afford to have this information come out. And I also fervently believe that much of this is going to lead directly to Barack Hussein Obama, because if you know one thing about him, it's this: he's not stupid. And you're going to find that the FBI is involved. And you're going to find that the DOJ, the Department of Justice, and the Attorney General's office is involved. I think you're going to find the CIA and the NSA, alphabet agencies, were involved. And you're going to find that this was all politically motivated and politically driven. Now, I'm going to get back to this article. I've got about 2 more minutes before the bottom of the hour. It all links in inexorably. It's a tortured, twisted, torturous path that all of these people who are inexorably linked, and I think we will discover that they're all inexorably linked, because the doors are being opened day by day through all these investigations, where Democrats, leftists, and the American media maggots were hoping that they're going to go right back to Trump and Russia and collusion, a catchword that means nothing in terms of the law. And we're going to find that it leads back to the people who wanted the investigation in the first place. And it's going to be this: they will rue the day, Democrats, leftists, and the American media maggots, they will rue the day that collectively or individually they decided that they were going to, on their own, create a series of investigations that were based upon bullshit. And I really can't, for me, that's the bottom line. Now, my job, as far as I'm concerned, is to bring this information to you in a blog and in radio form, and I'm going to do that next week. I'm going to have some entertainment too, but it's all linked, folks. DC stinks. It's corrupt. The alphabet agencies stink. My FBI, it stinks. Not the line level individuals, although we're finding that more line level individuals are involved in this, deep state individuals, but it's the hierarchies, the administrations of these agencies that need to be taken down, and the people that are running them need to be taken down. What do you have left as a country when your highest forms of law enforcement don't even obey the laws? And then further, we find that they won't even answer questions. What then do you have as a country? What do you have as a country?
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
featuring right thinking from a left brain and doing the job the American maggots won't. BZ is fundamentally changing America one diaper at a time. Just when safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, where the speech is free, but the drinks are not. The bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night, commencing at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific, where pushback is a requisite art form in and of itself. Let your ossicles be truly liberated when you listen to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, only on SHR Media Network. No ferrets were harmed in the making of this ad.
When dirty politicians, shadow governments, and deceptive Islam blind the world with fake stream media smoke, their only fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through SHRmedia.com, HighPlainsTalkRadio.com, and the Western Free Radio Network at Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes for a different perspective weekly on the Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on BlogTalkRadio.com. There's
no surrender ever,
because truth is not always pleasant.
This is Sam on SHR Media. You can listen to my new show starting on Tuesdays in January. Get my perspective on national politics, a conservative's perspective on California politics, the latest in the war on terror, all of that and a lot more here on Tuesdays at SHR Media. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Sam_SHR Media.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice. Reverend Ralph J. Chittum Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m., Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right. The right guy on SHR Media.
Beware, the Jersey Takeover is here. Every Monday through Friday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can catch Reaver Common Sense Show hosted by Jersey Joe, right here on SHRmedia.com. Only Jersey can deliver hell like no one else. So consider this your fair warning.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians, a team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless, hope to the hopeless, clues to the clueless. Sackheads Sean, Sackheads Clint, and Sackheads BZ. The Sackheads Radio Show every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern on SHRmedia.com. Watch on YouTube, Facebook, and the High Plains Pundit Network. The best in late-night conservative talk. The Sackheads Radio Show, only on the SHR Media Network.
Go ahead, I'll say it.
Some of the best A-roll is going to be evil.
Like, what are you talking about? The last question. Cut a couple seconds. Yeah, I'm a freaking artist. I can't just come up with this shit off the top of my head. Are you freaking kidding me right now?
Hey, good point. Exactly right.
Hey, this is Sackhead Clint, and I'm with Sackhead Sean, Sackhead BZ. No communists allowed on the SHR Media Network.
Damn straight, mister.
Back to the show.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And this is the final segment of the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct from the SHR Media Studios. Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, we are just a mere 2 miles from the belly of the beast, the Bill Mill in Sacramento, California. It's an evil, evil place, but it's not. It's not going to change its evil ways. Now, I was talking to you earlier an article from Fox News where a particular guy named Bruce Orr was demoted today from the Department of Justice. And originally this crap excuse came out, and then they began to reveal why it was that perhaps he was demoted. Orr will retain his task force title, but has been stripped of his higher post and ousted from his office on the 4th floor of Main Justice over in D.C. Initially, very important word, initially senior department officials could not provide the reason for Orr's demotion, but Fox News learned that evidence collected by the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, chaired by Representative Devin Nunes, Republican, California, oddly enough, indicates that Orr met during the 2016 campaign with Christopher Steele, the former British spy who authored the dossier. Now you see how some of this stuff is linking up and how some of these people are inexorably linked, which is why I went into that somewhat lengthy explanation earlier about the dossier, and I'll be connecting all the dots because the American media maggots, they want to know all about connecting the dots, except when the dots get connected in a way that they don't particularly like. Later, a Justice Department official told Fox News, "Well, it's unusual for anyone to wear 2 hats, as he has done recently. This person is going to go back to a single focus, director of our Organized Crime and Drug Enforcement Unit. As you know, combating transnational criminal organizations and drug trafficking is a top priority for the Attorney General." Yeah. Additionally, House investigators have determined, and this is where it gets dicey, deep state dicey, biased dicey, politically motivated dicey. Additionally, House investigators have determined that Orr met shortly after the election of Trump, with Glenn Simpson, the founder of Fusion GPS, the opposition research firm that hired Steele to compile the dossier with funds supplied by the Hillary Clinton campaign and the DNC, the Democrat National Committee. Links. Follow and connect the dots. By that point, according to published reports, the dossier had been in the hands of the FBI, which exists under the aegis of the DOJ, Department of Justice, for some 5 months. And the surveillance on Carter Page, whom I told you about earlier, and the FISA warrant, and the reason for the dossier, and how it was used as a tool. Carter Page, an advisor to the Trump campaign, had started more than 2 months prior. Former FBI Director James Comey, I love saying that, former FBI Director James Comey. James Comey should have been fired, removed, the roots removed from his ass to his chair at midnight on January 21st. Immediately. Trump did himself a disservice and the country a disservice by letting him stay. I think Trump thought that he could work with Comey, and then it was revealed how much of an arrogant prick was James Comey, who had the wool pulled over everyone's eyes and was nothing more than a political hack and did incredible amounts of damage to the FBI. Oh, by the way, this new guy, Ray, in the FBI, the new director, if you listened to any of the hearings today, and I'm going to have some cuts about that, this guy is clearly another establishment hack. Hack. Let me say that again. And he's not doing the FBI any good. And trust me when I tell you, because I still speak to people in the FBI, they are abjectly, incredibly embarrassed about how their name has been sullied and dragged through the mud by their former director, and now disappointed because of their current director, Ray, who prevaricated his ass off today in the hearings, if you happened to listen to that. Former FBI Director James Comey, testifying before the House in March, described the dossier as a compendium of salacious and unverified allegations against then-candidate Donald Trump and his associates. Correct. If so, another if-then equation. If so, then why was the dossier even referred to, and why was it given any credence whatsoever, and why did people continue to attempt to build a case off of salacious document, as he quite accurately portrayed there, against then-candidate Donald Trump and his associates. The Nunes panel has spent much of this year investigating whether DOJ, under then-Attorney General Loretta Lynch, used the dossier to justify a foreign surveillance warrant against Page. I know a little bit about FISA courts. FISA courts are secret. When you go into a FISA court, there's a pretty good chance that what you want, you're going to get. It's not like a grand jury and a ham sandwich. It's not that bad. But it's fairly consistent. That much I can tell you. The contacts between Orr and Steele and between Orr and Simpson have not been publicly disclosed nor shared with HPSCI staff, House Senate Intelligence Committee staff. The panel has issued numerous subpoenas for documents and witnesses related to the dossier, but claims DOJ and FBI have stonewalled. Accountability? Nope, they don't want it. They've stonewalled an assertion that House Speaker Paul Ryan seconded in a rare public statement in October. The panel has issued numerous subpoenas for documents and witnesses related to the dossier. While the agencies say they have cooperated extensively with Nunes and his team, including providing several hundred pages of classified documents relating to the dossier, it was only last weekend that DOJ and FBI agreed to make available to the committee, a political committee, the Intelligence Committee, for questioning Peter Strzok. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. The high-ranking FBI official who was disciplined in July for having sent anti-Trump texts to a colleague while playing a decisive role in last year's investigation into Mrs. Clinton's private server. This guy stinks. And he stinks to high heaven. Strzok was removed from the staff of Special Counsel Robert Mueller. Stop right here just for a second. He was removed in July. And nothing was heard about that for, let's see, 5 months? Almost 6 months? So Mueller obviously is playing above board with this, right? He's certainly playing with transparency, just like all leftists do. I trust Mueller as far as I could throw the, I don't know, Mount Rushmore. I don't think I can do that. Strzok was removed from the staff of Special Counsel Robert Mueller, who is probing allegations of collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russian government, and demoted to a position on the FBI's Human Resources Division. Oh my, that is a measured drop. The agency's decision to make Strzok available to House investigators came on the same day that the New York Times and the Washington Post disclosed the existence of the anti-Trump text messages, and Fox News disclosed that Strzok's conduct in the Clinton case was under review by the FBI's Office of Inspector General. Now wait, this guy's on the staff of Robert Mueller, who has to be completely unbiased because he's doing the very valued investigation on whether or not there was collusion between Trump and Russia and how it affected the election, because isn't that their marching order? Wasn't that their original marching order, the justification for the creation of Mueller as a special prosecutor? And the answer is yes. Fox News disclosed that Strzok's conduct in the Clinton case was under review by the FBI's Office of Inspector General. The demotion of Orr thus marked the second time within just a matter of months that the Justice Department and the FBI have disciplined for misconduct a senior official connected in some form or fashion to the Trump-Russia case. Imagine that. According to congressional sources, Simpson and Orr met sometime around Thanksgiving last year when President-elect Trump was in the process of selecting his cabinet and discussed over coffee the anti-Trump dossier, the Russian investigation, and what Simpson considered the distressing development of Trump's victory. The distressing development of Trump's victory. Bias, anyone? Table for one? Yes. How exactly Simpson and Orr came to know each other is still being investigated, but initial evidence collected by the House Intelligence Committee suggests that the two were placed in touch by Steele, a former FBI informant whose contacts with Orr are said by senior DOJ officials to date back to 2006. Devin Nunes, who's instructed HPSCI staff to draft contempt of Congress citations against Rosenstein, the Deputy Attorney General, sitting Deputy Attorney General right now, and FBI Director Christopher Wray, current FBI Director, preparatory to a House vote on whether the citations should be enforced, issued a fresh subpoena on Thursday, today, well, maybe tomorrow if you're on the East Coast, specifically covering Orr and his files. I'm telling you this, folks, because shit is about to hit the fan. Now, I published in my blog an article about how Mueller decided that he was going to, Michael Flynn pled guilty, and so did Manafort and another guy whose name I can never remember. And you use those as leverage to get to other people, because that's what the federal government does. But the funny thing is, doesn't it seem to you, I posit, just a little odd that for lying to the FBI, Michael Flynn, and lying to the FBI, Manafort, that's something with which you can get big time, or then we'll break you and manipulate you and maybe we'll make you wear a wire on somebody else until we get what it is that we want. Do you remember this? Huma Abedin and Cheryl Mills, they went completely unpunished after lying to the FBI with regard to anti-Trump bias. Okay, so after it was revealed that a top FBI agent was removed from special counsel Robert Mueller's investigation for anti-Trump bias, numerous questions have surfaced about the agent's involvement in both the Mueller investigation itself and the Clinton email investigation. Peter Strzok, that demoted FBI agent, personally interviewed the main players in both. See how this, again, is inexorably connected. It's all interwoven together. And I'm doing my level best to allow you to see how this web is crafted. Peter Strzok, the demoted FBI agent, personally interviewed the main players in both the FBI's investigation of Hillary Clinton's private email server and Mueller's investigation of alleged Trump-Russia ties. However, when two of the witnesses in the Clinton case lied to FBI investigators, imagine this. The outcome was much different from when a key witness in the Trump-Russia investigation lied. In the Clinton case, and this is sourced by the Daily Caller, FBI documents show that Huma Abedin and Cheryl Mills told investigators they weren't aware of Clinton's email server until after Clinton left the State Department, but released emails show Abedin and Mills discussing the server long before Clinton left the State Department, and the two were both interviewed by Strzok and never faced criminal prosecution. Now, what do we know about Strzok? Well, he's totally unbiased, right? Bullshit. He hates Trump. That information has been revealed. And he loved Hillary Clinton. Now, in terms of the investigation, do you possibly think there might be any bias in there? No. These two were interviewed by that guy, Strzok, and they never faced criminal prosecution. Now, on the other hand, like I said, Michael Flynn, let's see, he was Trump's first national security advisor, if I'm not mistaken. He was charged with lying to the FBI last week for dishonest statements that he gave to an interview with the FBI on sometime in January, I think. Strzok was the agent who interviewed Michael Flynn. Sarah Carter revealed that. If you're not reading Sarah Carter's stuff at circa.com, you need to. It was also revealed, and again, this is where it gets a little bit interesting, trying to put it all together as I am wont to do. It was also revealed this past Monday that Strzok was responsible for softening the language that then FBI Director James Comey used in a statement to announce the FBI would not recommend charges against Hillary Clinton. What do we know about that statement? We know that statement was crafted by him for Comey prior to the investigation being concluded. Nah, you don't see any bias in that, do you? No, of course not. Okay, so according to the Daily Caller, FBI documents reveal exactly what it is that Mills and Abedin said in their FBI interviews. Mills did not learn Clinton was using a private server until after Clinton's State Department tenure. Mills stated she was not even sure she knew what a server was at that time. Abedin didn't know that Clinton had a private server until about a year and a half ago when it became public knowledge. Notes from that interview said. But emails located on Clinton's server show both aides discussing the server on more than one occasion. Emails on specific dates in 2010, 2011, another in 2011, all show the two aides discussing the server. For example, on February 27, 2010, Mills asks, HRC email coming back, is server okay? That same email also went to Abedin. So here's some questions. And I've got about 7 more minutes left. Just a couple of questions off the top of my head. Call me wacky, call me silly. I'm fat, don't call me late for dinner. All right, if it's been proven that Mills and Abedin and Flynn, all three, if it's proven that they all lied to the FBI, okay, why is only Flynn charged with a crime? Put on your thinking caps for that one. Now I have a second question. Does this information now lend any kind of, I don't know, credence or something like that to President Donald Trump's claim that there's a double standard in the FBI? You don't see that, do you? Okay. The third question is, all of this stuff, could this possibly, I'm just asking, I'm just throwing it out into the ozone, could this possibly be because of Strzok's bias? That he allowed his inclinations to get involved in the investigations themselves. So do what people would have done for me, BZ, as an investigator. We have something in Sacramento called the Brady List. And I don't think I'm speaking out of turn when I say the Brady List is this. Now, people are not supposed to mention this. But I will because I'm retired and I don't mostly care. The Brady List in Sacramento is a list of officers, law enforcement officers, who have lied, been found to have lied on the stand, and they have no credibility whatsoever. And so what do you think? Do what I call the logical extension, because it would certainly be done with me. For example, here's how important and how truly reaching the Brady List is. We had an individual who had a melanin-challenged self, and he was eventually promoted to captain, but once it was discovered that he lied in open court on the stand, that he could never be in a position where he could possibly remotely be involved in an investigation to the point where he would be called to the stand, because anything that he would have to say has a history of lies behind it. And so he was promoted, moved someplace else, because that's politics. That's the way it goes in my former department and any other place. Politics all over the place. But that's how important the Brady List is. Because then if he were allowed to stay, let's say I, as an investigator, were found to have lied on the stand and I went onto the Brady List, could you not make a relevant assumption? And would a defense attorney not make any kind of a relevant assumption that, you know what, let's go back to every damn case this guy investigated, because if he lied on this case, gosh, don't you think that he probably lied on a lot of other cases? And most every investigation that I had done, particularly with regard to an arrest that I'd possibly made, where I took the life and or liberty away from someone, that all of those cases would be subject to reopening and investigations again? And the answer is yes. That's what would happen to me. Now, if this is the result of this guy Strzok's bias from these questions that I've already posed, I have for you, and this is the reason I made that comparison, how many other cases has this guy investigated where his bias has affected the case as well? I think that's only the logic. That's the most logical of questions to ask. We have just begun to touch the surface of the corruption, and I am telling you this tonight. We've not even begun to open this stuff up, and the Demorats, leftists, and American media maggots, again, I say, will rue the day that they ever decided to go down this road, because this road is like a bad boomerang. This road is going to lead right back to them, to the Demorats themselves, and possibly directly up to the White House and the Oval Office involving the previous occupant. I think you can pretty much take that to the bank.
Monsieur has been locked!
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thanks for listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon right here on the SHR Media Network. If you want to contact me, you'll find me on Twitter at BZEP and on my blog at bloviatingzeppelin.net. My original music at the beginning is by Possessed Tranquility. Promotional consideration is by Lockheed Martin Skunk Works, the Boeing Company, if it ain't Boeing, I ain't going, and also by Pratt & Whitney Engines. Thrust, you can trust. Thanks again to my personal KC-135 Kettle One refueling team, as you already know, with whom I will be consorting in less than an hour from now. Start now. Oot! And thank you. I want to thank you, and I want to thank Tammy J for listening and for being on the show tonight, and I want to thank you for listening live, for being in chat, for listening in podcast. Thanks to Tammy J again. We got to have her back. So, folks, God bless. Take care. Be safe. You have a great weekend. Good night.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children.
Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob. What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing? Good night.
Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, and good luck.